Good evening once again, and welcome back to the Behind the Leazes podcast. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new evening rather. And I thought there would be some liquid football in this most recent game against Norwich City, but unfortunately there wasn't. The Fab Four is, it's not here at the moment, but I have got a new face on the podcast as well as a familiar one. Ethan joins us for the first time, and he will be here for the foreseeable. Ethan, how you doing, pal?
I'm very good, mate. Thank you for having me on the show. I'm looking forward to it.
Of course, yeah. It's great to have you on as well. Every time we get a new person on the podcast, we ask them just a couple of questions. I know you went, what's the sort of sitch before the podcast? We didn't tell you this. So your favourite Newcastle memory and your first Newcastle game that you went to as well.
Oh, favourite memory. I loved in the championship season under Rafa when we beat Norwich 4-3. I know those last few goals were so dramatic, and we were so happy when we got that late equaliser. Then Dwight Gale got that winner out of absolutely nothing. So I think that moment, that burst of euphoria was probably one of my best memories of being a Newcastle fan. First game was in 2011. We drew 1-1 against Bolton. And I think Kevin Nolan scored for Newcastle and Daniel Sturridge scored for Bolton. So that was my first game.
Wow, good memory, good memory. We've also got Andy here as well. How are you doing, pal?
I'm all good, mate, yeah. Bit disappointed on Tuesday night, but ready to go again on Saturday.
Well, you managed to snag a last-minute ticket, didn't you? You went by yourself, you lonely soul.
I did, mate. I went by myself. I thought, you know what, it's something I would never usually do, so I pushed myself out of the box, and I enjoyed myself, mate. Apart from Kieran Clark. Well, I enjoyed myself for about 9 minutes, and then Kieran Clark sorted that. So.
Yeah, of course, we are talking about that 1-1 draw against Norwich City. I think a game that we all sort of knew deep down inside it was definitely a must-win. I'd predicted it personally to be an absolute cracking game. It was going to be, emulating the 4-3 back in the Championship days, an absolute classic under the lights. But, maybe it wasn't that game. But, 1-1, I think with the circumstances, looking at, going down to 10 men, going up a little bit later on as well, it was maybe a good point to have. Andy, I'll start with you first. Kieran Clark, he did manage to get himself sent off. I was speaking to some people that I know who are based in Newcastle, and they follow the club, and they're saying that, they're done with Kieran Clark now. They're not happy with, the decision he made. He made the mistake that initially led to the red card as well, because, he had to pull him down. What did you make of the decision at the time? And, has it been any more justified or any less justified after a day or so?
No, to be honest, for one, really, Kieran Clark shouldn't have been near the pitch to start with. Fede Fernandez, who came on, had an excellent game. Arguably our best player, tied with Joe Linton. It should have started the game and will the next game, hopefully. I think both Shaw and Fernandez cemented their places in that team during that game. But the decision to pull Pukki down, yes, Pukki was the wrong goal, but you've got to have trust in your keeper. Dubravka showed later on in the game he was more than capable in saving a one-on-one. So him doing that was just stupid, jeopardised our game. That was a game, I think, had we started with the back four we finished with, we'd have comfortably comfortably won that game. I truly believe that. And my only other problem is probably Maxi. I thought he looked lazy and very like hadn't Ben Arthur in his last season with the club when he started doing a lot less and when he got the ball trying to do too much and not passing. So yeah, just if it wasn't for Clark, I think we could have won that game quite easily.
Definitely, yeah. I completely agree with you. I'd rather really go a goal down. Obviously you wouldn't know what happened later on in the game, but I'd rather go a goal down and keep 11 men rather than having to go, 85 minutes for the rest of the game without, having that extra man and support. But I completely agree with you once again. Fede Fernandez had a fantastic game. I think you made a little joke on Twitter, didn't you, about Joe Linton saying he was the best defensive midfielder we've had this season or of all time, something like that.
I don't know what you're talking about. That wasn't a joke.
Well, yeah, Joe Linton, Ethan, adopted a bit more of a midfield role this game. Of course, Fede Fernandez came back into the squad after what seemed like quite a long absence out. I'm not sure if he was injured or I'm not sure if he was just dropped for some reason, but he had a great game and so did Joe Linton, didn't they?
Yeah, well, I think Fernandez's last game was that defeat away to Wolves a long time ago now. And it brings the question about the defenders at the minute. I do think Federico Fernandez is the best of the centre-halves that we've got. I don't trust Fabian Schär in a back four. I don't rate Jamal Lascelles as a captain. It makes me question as well whether we really should have got rid of Florian Lejeune when you've got defenders of that kind of standard at the minute. But so that's where we need to improve in January at the back. But yes, Joe Linton, unquestionably man of the match. His work rate was absolutely terrific when we got in difficult situations, battling for the ball down the touchline. He'd pull out a piece of skill to get himself out of trouble and put the ball back down the line. And it was very difficult to keep hold of the ball. But Joe Linton did a really good shift. And I honestly believe if Joe Linton wasn't on the pitch working as hard as he did, I think Newcastle could have lost that game. I really believe that.
Definitely, yeah. Once again, I completely agree with you. On the centre-backs as well, who are our established centre-backs? We've got Shaw, Fernandez, Lascelles. Is there anyone else?
Well, you can put Paul Dummett in there perhaps, but it's interesting, Liam, because this Newcastle team, these defenders it's been pretty much the same defenders for the last 5 years. And these guys did know how to defend under the previous manager, under Rafa, not Bruce. And they did know how to defend. Some stats for you. So in 17-18, Newcastle had the 7th best defence in the league. They only conceded 47 goals. The season after, they conceded 48, just one more goal. And they also, again, the 7th best defence in the division. And now they've conceded 30 goals in 14 matches. That's because of mismanagement, because of the previous manager. They've lost a way of defending, and especially now under Eddie Howe, Newcastle aren't going to be playing this defensive style of football anymore. It's going to be more optimistic, pressing high up the field, and you need to have defenders who are more competent. Because if you're sitting, I think it's easier to defend if you're in a 5-4-1 and you're getting instructed to defend all the game. But these defenders don't exactly know how to ball play, and when passes are getting put over the top, like Pookie got through the other day, Kieran Clark didn't have a clue what to do, and he was out of his depth. So, these are the same defenders, but it's not working now for one reason or another.
Andy, do you agree with what you said there? Obviously, it's clear that the centre-backs and the defenders that we've got have lost a lot of confidence under the previous coaches. Do you think they can maybe get that back in the latter stages of the season, or do you think it's over for them now?
I completely agree with what Ethan's just had to say, and I'll echo his thoughts on the 17-18 season. At the end of that season, I think we're all quite frustrated that Lascelles hadn't received an England call-up in that season. Was one of the best English centre-halves in that season.
And Leicester were going to bid 35 million for him or something.
Exactly. And Chelsea were around in those talks as well. There was always the hype around Lascelles, and I don't know if there's... He always seems like he's been involved in a training ground scuffle. I don't know if there's been a lot going on in the background that we don't know about for him to lose his confidence. Because at times he shows that there's a good centre-half there, a good defensive centre-half is there. In terms of, like Ethan said, we struggled playing the ball up from the back. Fabian Shaw was doing that, and he was dispensing the ball back quite well against Norwich. The only problem is he can be a liability when it comes to the defending. When he slipped over near the end, Norwich went through, and Dubravka made a really good save. And it's just, we do need to bring in faces in January, and I would love, funny enough, to bring in Tarkowski, obviously playing Burnley next. I think he is someone we need. I've seen there's a few sources now saying that Trippier looks likely to maybe come in. And while
I really like the idea of Tarkowski, because I think that's the leadership we're missing at the minute. And with Jamal Lascelles not really being in the form that we know he can be. I mean, for this season, for example, remember the first few games, I think it was by like game week 4, Lascelles had given away 2 penalties. And he scored an own goal against Brentford the other day. Okay, that's a bit harsh to blame him. But you can't have a captain who is all good at talking and telling people what to do. That's a very important element. But you have to back that up with performance. And you can't. And I really like the suggestion of James Tarkowski, who can combine those leadership skills, and he can defend, can't he?
Well, in the meanwhile, lads, would you like to see Callum Wilson keep the captaincy? I know he was captain on Tuesday night against Norwich, and why not? Newcastle number 9, Big Al, was captain for all those years, and might be nice to see it again. I've certainly got no problem with it.
Definitely. Well, John Joe Shelby was usually the person that would take the captaincy, but seemingly fallen out of favour recently. But give it the next couple of games. If Lascelles doesn't start, why not? What about you, Ethan? What do you reckon?
I'm happy with it. I think Callum Wilson is Newcastle's most important player, or you could argue St. Maximin, but I think at the end of the day, it's about scoring goals. I think Callum Wilson is Newcastle's most important player. I like that Eddie Howe has worked with him before and he trusts him. So I think Callum Wilson could be definitely a good captain for the future.
And, we spoke about familiar faces, a maybe unfamiliar face this season. Jamal Lewis got his first start against Norwich. How did you guys think he played? He got the full 90, I believe.
But he's got the pace, hasn't he? He can keep up with the game, which Richie has struggled with over the last couple of weeks. Look, I hate talking negatively about Richie because, look, I've mentioned before that I don't like saying, just because they've been a good servant of the club doesn't mean they should just guarantee them playing every week when they're not keeping up with performances. Richie has been a great servant of the club, but look, unfortunately, he's getting older and he's losing that leg of pace, and the Premier League is getting quicker by the year. So Lewis came on, started, and very few faults, to be honest, mate. And I think everyone has said that they want the back four of Lewis, Shaw, Fernandez, and Manquillo. And I'd agree, that is our best four, I think, at the minute.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was the back four that I had. Ethan, do you echo Andy's thoughts there?
Jamal Lewis, obviously, he's been out for a long time. To be honest, I don't rate him too much, but I would agree with Andy. He put on a decent display, as did most of the players on that on the pitch against Norwich the other day, because they really did fight. It was a great team effort. Obviously, Manquillo come back into the team as well. I think he's Newcastle's best right back. I don't rate Emil Kraft too much. I think that back four is probably Newcastle's best defence. Again, Schär, I do tend to question at times. I think Fabian Schär in a back five is terrific because he has the ability to bring the ball forward. That was under Benitez. I mean, the goal against Huddersfield, you remember when he just ran, he had confidence, and I feel like he loses a bit of that confidence in a back four.
He made one of them runs against Norwich on Tuesday night. He was quite unlucky not to get anything out at the end of it. I think, to be honest, I would quite like, if we were to bring another defender in, centre half, I wouldn't mind seeing Schär playing a defensive midfield role. I think he could play there because he can dispense a ball well, and probably would work well with Shelby because he can track around and tackle. Because we brought Hayden on, and honestly, awful. It's the worst performance I've seen him in a black and white shirt. Just where we looked like we could counter attack, he was just getting it, just lumping it anywhere forward, and you could hear how frustrated everyone was getting with him when he came on.
He's another one, Andy, who's a player who's I'd say a leader in that team. And again, years gone by, Newcastle fans saying, how's Isaac Hayden not in the England squad? And he's just a completely different player this season. He's been poor. I don't trust him when I used to before. I used to trust him more than any other player in a black and white shirt. And yeah, I mean, against Norwich, you're completely right. He was just punting the ball forward in a big panic when you needed a little bit of calm and composure in those latter stages to try and find the ball to Wilson if you can. And yeah, it was rash, and he's been like that all season.
Well, it's what 2 years, well, 2.5 years of just training a couple of times a week does. That is where the blame's got to be pointed at. How the club's been run, training under Bruce and that training ground itself. The facilities obviously aren't there to help progress players and keep them at the level they've been at. And then you're going to lose your match fitness, your match awareness, everything when you're only training a couple of times a week. And then just when you're getting coached by someone that's obviously tactically inept as well, it's destroyed. Well, I don't want to be dramatic and say it's destroyed these lads' careers, but it's certainly not done them any good.
Well,
No, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Liam, go on.
I was just going to agree with what you were saying, because I think we felt quite gobsmacked when they went to the 5-day week training schedule when Graham Jones was appointed as the interim manager. How weird is it knowing? I'll assume that all these other teams are doing 5, 6, 7 days of training each week. How weird is it knowing that we're not doing even a quarter of that at times, or we're used to at least?
Well, it's just frustrating, isn't it? It's just completely frustrating. I can imagine the players are being frustrated, to be honest, because if they're wanting to protect their careers and want to have a long career, you want to be keeping your fitness up and you want to be training. So for Bruce to be just saying like, "Oh, we'll do it 2-3 times a week," and I can go off to Albufeira for a fortnight.
Well, there's been little digs as well during the Bruce era from players. I think you remember when Callum Wilson spoke to The Athletic and he said the manager doesn't really deal with tactics too much. This was on about Graham Jones then coming in and adding that new element. Ryan Fraser the other day was speaking about how the new coaches coming in has revitalised the place, and it's been so important that they're not taking breaks, the training, they're working hard, they're trying to get things right all the time, when that urgency didn't seem there like it was there before. And obviously, I think there is some bias from Newcastle fans and where they go, Bruce was terrible and he's lazy and didn't do a lot. But now this is actually coming from the players where they're saying there wasn't really much tactical stuff going on in training sessions and we could have worked harder, but we didn't. That's actually coming out now. So it sounds like it could well be the truth.
Definitely, and it's insane that so many players have already come out and spoke about it. We spoke a little bit before about certain players maybe getting a snub from the England squad. I've just had a little look here. The last player to get an England call-up who played for Newcastle, not Shelvey, not Colback. Colback did get a call-up, but he never played. So I'll give you a point if you get it.
What, whilst playing for Newcastle at the time?
Whilst playing for Newcastle at the time, so it's not like Callum Wilson or anything like that.
Stephen Taylor.
It's not Andy Carroll, is it?
It's not. Andy Carroll's the second last, so that was back in 2012 for the Euros.
Oh my goodness.
What position?
He was a winger. Yeah, I'll give you the answer. Yeah, it was Andros
Townsend. He played at Sunderland, man, didn't he?
Yeah,
he got booed.
So he had that game at Sunderland. But yeah, that's the last player to receive an England call up, and I completely agree with you. As Isaac Hayden, even Sean Longstaff, his breakthrough season was getting sort of cries for a call up. I think snubbed by Gareth Southgate only for Declan Rice, and we all know how that's gone. So maybe he got that decision right. We don't know. Moving on, of course, the game didn't finish 1-0. It was 1-1. Teemu Pukki, he's got a foot like a traction engine, hasn't he? It was a really, really good finish, but it was a really, really.
I knew you were going to do this.
It was a cracking finish by Teemu Pukki. Some calls for Dubravka maybe to do a little bit more. I've had a little look at the goal a few times, and I think it's just unfortunate for Dubravka. He's only really just set his feet whilst the ball's flying at him. What did you guys make of the goal? Andy, I know you would have seen it in real time at the match. Did you sort of initially think he should be doing better than that? Or?
It's been coming, to be honest, mate. It obviously didn't help that with us being down to 10 men, we'd had to sit back, and I thought we'd defended well throughout the game. I think after the game, looking at it, we were the better team, I think, even though we had the 10 men. And certainly it gave us hope for the rest of the season. If that's what the kinds of team we're competing with, obviously we'll see what the crack is when we play Burnley on Saturday. But with the amount Dubravka had already faced, maybe should have gotten into it. But look, we were down to 10 men, defended the whole game. It was likely that they were going to score at some point after taking so many attacks. But I think it was just the overall feeling was disappointment. But at first, I certainly didn't boo. The players didn't deserve that whatsoever. But good performance, I think, from the team. They give it everything to cover for missing that one man. And I thought it was unlucky for Ryan Fraser as well that he was the one that was chose to go off, because I think he's had a couple of good games and certainly has started knocking some absolute worldy balls from nowhere. So I think had we had him on the pitch, we probably would have walked the game, to be honest.
Yeah, just on that as well, Ryan Fraser is, I'll be honest, I was out in Liverpool whilst the game was on, so I was sort of just picking my phone up and having a little watch. How very understanding he looked for it to be him to come off. Fair play to him. I think a season before, and he would have really thrown his toys out the pram. You mentioned there about the crowd booing that performance, certain sections of the crowd booing. Ethan, what do you make of that? Quite a brilliant, valiant effort from Newcastle, definitely to defend with so much and nearly win the game as well at one point. Do you think the fans had a right to boo?
No, I don't think they did. I mean, what can you do? It gets to the point where Kieran Clark gets sent off. Your game plan goes out the window. They stuck together. The game plan changed. Players like Joe Linton were playing out of position and done a brilliant job. I think the whole team put in a really valiant effort. And no, it's not justified to boo. It's disappointing. Don't get me wrong. Fans have every right to be disappointed. This was a must-win game, but because of the circumstances, it was so difficult for that to happen. And I think you have to be grateful for getting a point at the end of the day. If we lost that, I think that would have been more than catastrophic.
Definitely. And just looking at another situation that happened during the game, or it was actually before the game. I'm not sure if you've really seen the video of this, but so obviously during the training sessions before the game, footballs are getting pelted about. They're flying about the place. Sometimes they'll land in the crowd, right?
Or sometimes Tim Krul will turn around and intentionally boot balls into the crowd.
So yeah, I completely forgot about that, actually. Sometimes these things will happen, but it's something I've never seen before. It's happened at that game. So a ball has been kicked into the crowd by Tim Krul, like you've said there, Andy. And, a fan's gone and picked it up, put in his bag, fair play. And a Norwich staff member I think he's asked for the ball back. He's hopped into the stands and tried to nick this guy's bag. And then
it's embarrassing, isn't it? They get given the balls. It's not like they're paying for them. And Tim Krul's done that. That'll be in someone's day, that. And then first he's trying to snatch the bag off him. And then when he's like Stewart's like pulling him away, pushing him to go back down to the pitch, then he's turned around and started giving it the big licks. And
did Tim Krul purposely give the ball to the fans?
Krul did that thing where he just turns around, but he used to do it all the time in those open training sessions. And then there's this Norwich coach, or whatever position he is, started trying to give it the big licks. And then it's the most Geordie thing you just hear some guy with his up going, "I'll chin ye!" And then it's just class.
I'll do you in.
It's just class. Like, just let them have it. You know what I mean? It's nice memento when you're not paying for it. It's not coming out your club's expensive, and just now it's one of them, and it's just
definitely. I mean, if we're in that situation, I'm not being funny. If a ball's been kicked into the ground, the Premier League, a billion, multi-billion pound organisation. I'm sure they can afford to get another football. It's not the end of the world. But I just want to ask you about that and like what you thought of the whole situation, because never have I ever seen anything like that. It's just absolutely crazy. Ethan, what do you make of it as well? Because surely it's something that we've all never really seen before. We don't really know what to say.
I mean, that's really grumpy and unsportsmanlike from the coach. I mean, what's come on? What's the need? Why do that? What are you getting from that? Let the fan enjoy themselves. Tim Krul's put the ball in the crowd. It's for them to have fun with. They're making something out of nothing. I don't know why I've done that. So yeah, I guess the Norwich City coach has definitely embarrassed himself there, and he won't look back at that too fondly.
You know what I would have done if I was the guy who was trying to take the ball off? If I realised I wasn't going to be getting to keep it, it's gone back behind us and it's going up and up and up around the Leazes. Yeah. I would just love it. It's just everyone just tease him and knock around, but like let him get close there and then move it again.
Yeah,
just make him run around the Leazes. But it was stupid, mate. And it's just you look. Hey, Dean Smith must have had a word with him after, or at least Tim Krul must have.
Without a doubt. It happens at away games sometimes, doesn't it? Where they sort of just start chucking the ball about when it's a throw-in or something. I think we actually lost a goal because of that once.
Well, I was going to say, I remember I was at Norwich away in the season we got relegated, and it might have been like Olsen or someone coming to the sideline to get the ball to take a throw-in, and the Newcastle fans kept throwing it up and backwards, and the Norwich player was finding it quite funny, but as soon as the ball got back to him, they threw it in, and the Newcastle players weren't set, and I think they scored, and I think Norwich won 3-2 that game. So yeah, it doesn't it can go against you as well.
I think it was actually exactly that game that I was on about as well. So good knowledge. We'll move on to the Burnley game now, because it's a very, very important game that I think we need to talk about. We were talking about we've got to definitely get 6 points out of these next two. We've got 1 out of the first one, so 4 points out of the next two. It's not too bad when it's your relegation rivals. Last season you looked and you went, yeah, we've maybe got 3 teams who are a lot worse than us. Now I think it's us, Norwich, and Burnley who are those 3 teams, and it's maybe like a Leeds or a Southampton or a Brighton. Saying that Brighton as well.
Watford as well. Mate, their new manager bounces done with, I think.
You reckon?
Yeah.
I think they're not draw yesterday, or did they get beat?
No, they got beat. Chelsea nicked it, but I think Watford, that new manager bounce they've got going on, will very quickly go.
The end of the honeymoon period, you reckon? Well, I think if we end this year on a high, I'm still very, very confident we'll stay up. But if we end this year on a nice high, then I'll not stop calling us part of the 3 worst teams in the league. But yeah, Burnley, it's a really, really important game. It's a 6-pointer. Saying that so early on, it really is a 6-pointer. Andy, I'll come to you first. What changes do you think need to be made to the lineup to ensure we can get 3 points in this? Whether it's formations, player changes, tactical changes.
Exactly that same team that was were named for Norwich, and obviously Fernandez in for Clark. I don't think any other changes need to be made. I think Ryan Fraser, he's a feisty little thing when he plays, and that's the players we're going to need to play against Burnley. I think Joe Linton has shown his strengths on the pitch at just the right time. He's starting to bully players, hold them off, win tackles, and that's exactly the kind of player you need going up against Burnley, because they're a tough hitting side who's just, it's no nonsense, isn't it? Really, it's lump it up and hit it forward. Well, we just need to catch them on the break, and I think with the likes of Shaw and Shelby, who can hit a good long ball, and now Joe Linton all of a sudden can hit one as well, I think that is the team that, if we play them, we will beat this Burnley side. I've got 100% confidence in that.
Ethan, I'll ask you about the changes as well. More importantly, you spoke about how much you don't really trust Fabian Shaw in a back 4. Would you keep him in the lineup for this next game?
Well, there's not an awful lot to choose from, to be honest with you. I'm not too sure. It's something I'd need to have a think about if I was Eddie Howe. I think Jamal Lascelles will come back into the team because he's the captain. That's just how it works. Federico Fernandez is the only centre half for me who is a certainty to start and deserves to start. But yeah, I think apart from that, I think stick with that team. I agree with Andy. It was a shame that Ryan Fraser was the one to get killed the other day. It'll be good to see him get another 90 minutes or 70 minutes, whatever. It'll be good to see him play. But yeah, I think pretty much stick with that team and maybe bring in Federico Fernandez for Clark. Like Andy said, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, of course, Clark will have the 3-game ban that I'll have to serve in the next 3 games, obviously.
Might be one if it was. It might just be the one game.
I think
No,
it was
straight red.
so,
Straight red.
Yeah.
Yeah, but is it not like if it's a straight red for like tactical play? Is it not just one game?
A professional foul, do you mean? Or?
Yeah. I don't know. I thought maybe it'd just be one, but
I'll have to search it up.
Who cares? I'll tell you what, Lee. If he is available for the game after that, I don't care. He's not getting near the team, no matter when he's available.
Well, like I said, the people that I've been speaking to, they're saying that he's done at the club. Get shot of him in January. Looking at Burnley's squads, they've had some players who are in decent form. Maxwell Cornet, I think, is the big one in particular.
Yeah.
Are there any other players that you think are big players to look out for on this Burnley side?
Liam, I've told you, man, he plays for Umbro.
Oh, you say this every time because he pointed to the wrong side of his badge, like as if he pointed to the champion badge here. But yeah, what sort of players would you be looking out for as well as Cornet?
Well, I think Cornet is a terrific player. As he got something like 5 goals already so far this season, even though he didn't play for a large part of the start of the season. It took him a while to get into that Burnley team. But I mean, I think Burnley's 2 big lads up top, whether it'll be Barnes and Wood or maybe like play Vidra, whatever, whoever plays alongside Wood. I think Newcastle centre-halves will be struggling to deal with them because the most generous defence in the Premier League. So yeah, I think Chris Wood could be definitely causing trouble. McNeil as well on the wing. He's a tricky player. I really like the look of him, and I think he's got bags of potential. So I think Burnley definitely have players that could pull them out of this relegation scrap and keep them in the Premier League. Sean Dyche does it all the time, and these are the games that has kept Burnley in the leagues for so long because Sean Dyche tends to get these results. But obviously, I'm hoping that isn't the case come the next game.
Yeah, and you look at Burnley's defence as well, then they're not a defence that concedes a lot of goals, maybe unless you're playing like a Liverpool or a Man City or anything like that. Do you think it's going to be quite hard for us to break them down?
You see, Liam, I'm not rating Burnley's defence like I used to from previous years. Obviously, I've just been talking about how much I'd love James Tarkowski. I still think he's an excellent player, but Burnley aren't defending like they used to. One thing that Newcastle are quite good at this season is scoring goals. So I would expect maybe Callum Wilson or St. Maximin to get on the score sheet. So I'm not too terrified about us not scoring, but I am worried about keeping it out at the other end because I mean, yeah, Newcastle are going to concede. They haven't kept a clean sheet this season. I can't see them doing it this time out.
Andy, just coming to you on sort of players to look out for on Burnley's point of view as well. Who are you maybe quite scared of in that lineup?
Wood and Barnes are always nightmares for us, aren't they? They're just bullies, and I think they could easily bully our centre halves if we let them. That's why we need to really focus on holding the ball up in the attacking third, which, Christ, I know for Newcastle is asking for a lot and probably asking for too much since we only just managed to get a game with where we've had more half of the percentage against Brentford. Maybe similar performance to that, but obviously just more defensively sound. If we are going to drop either Shaw or Fernandez and Lascelles is coming in, maybe play Shaw in that hold midfielder role. I think we're going to need support in front of the defence. Shelby needs to be on his A game, and I think it didn't help, obviously playing on a wet surface on Tuesday night. You could see some of the passes were just going skew with. But I think at the end of the day, we are a better squad than Burnley. I think Burnley at the minute is relying on individuals. We have been guilty of that, but I think Eddie Howe has got us starting to look like a unit. And I mean, Tuesday night, the solidarity that was displayed by those lads on that pitch, I think shows that. And I think why not kickstart this off now? Get the win against Burnley. Away at Leicester, they've been ropey this season. Liverpool are sensational. That's a write-off before we go there. If we've got anything there, that's amazing. And then we've still got the likes of City and Man United to play as well. But at the end of the month, we've got Everton. That's another game. If Rafa is somehow still there, God bless him. Everton look like a side we can beat. Tuesday night with 10 men and how solid we were, and only let it slip that once for the goal and maybe a couple of opportunities that Norwich had have give me confidence back in these lads that we can fight on now and start picking up results.
Yep, certainly up for some liquid football on Saturday. We'll go around the room as well with a score prediction. Andy, we'll start with you.
2-1. I'm going to say Callum Wilson and Joe Linton, and probably either Woods or Barnes to get the goal for Burnley.
Ethan, score prediction as well?
Do you want me pretending to be optimistic or a real prediction?
I want your heart to give us the score prediction. Your heart.
Oh well, I'd like to say we'll win, but I think we'll draw again. I think Burnley aren't going to lose that game. I think Dycher's going to do everything in his power not to lose. That would be the worst case scenario. But I still think both teams are going to get goals. I'm going to say 2-2.
2-2. Interesting. I'll say 3-1. I believe Joe Linton might grab a couple. And then,
why not?
You know what? Let's say Joe Willock will come into his form. A player who has been a shell of himself, I must say, since last season. Yeah. I don't think anyone's going
to... It's not like he hasn't played in position once, mind.
No, of course not. He's been playing more than...
I felt sorry for him when he started picking up some stick over the last couple of weeks. He's not a central midfielder. He's an attacking midfielder, and that's why he scored as many goals as he did when he came to... I don't know. I know we've been playing 4-4-2, but I would quite like to see it switch. So we're playing an attacking midfielder and maybe two... Ethan, like you were mentioning before, we played that 4-2-3-1 so well those couple of years under Rafa, and that's why we conceded so few. Maybe we need to go back to that. It's a formation the players will know. And Shelby's showed that he can happily sit just in front of the defence and ping balls. And like I said, maybe Shaw in that role next to him and have Willock behind Wilson and scoring goals. That's what I'd like to see.
I was going to say, because Eddie Howe's known for playing a 4-4-1-1 or 4-4-2, it would be interesting to see maybe Willock as a 10. Obviously, I'd like to see Almiron get a few more matches, and I'm sure that'll happen eventually. I do rate Almiron. I think his work rate's fantastic. Of course, he doesn't score enough or have the final end product a lot of the time, but yeah, I agree. It would be good to see Willock play in a more advanced position, because hopefully he can be one of those key players to keep Newcastle up if he gets that form that he had last season, which proved the case last year when we were in a pretty dire situation as well.
Yeah.
Just before we end this podcast, gents, I want to sort of move on to a little topic that maybe we hadn't planned to speak about, but just about attitudes at the football club and in mentalities of different players and how different attitudes might affect their performances on the pitch. So Alan St. Maximin, I'll take for an example, has had a little bit of bother off the pitch. He had his car clamped a couple of weeks ago because he hasn't been paying taxes. I think maybe just a bit of a bad attitude. Yeah, he did, yeah. A bit of a bad attitude as well off the pitch. I think, for me personally, I think that attitude is showing off on the football pitch as well, especially in that Arsenal game. I didn't, like I said, manage to catch all of the Norwich game, so I didn't really get to see how he played. But I just wanted to get your guys' perspectives on it. Do you think a bad attitude off the pitch will lead to a bad attitude and poor performances on the pitch? We'll start with Ethan first.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. you have to carry yourself in the correct manner in the correct way off the pitch, and again that avoids getting in any kind of scandal. I mean, if it's not Newcastle related, but if you remember Harry Maguire, when he was having that bad spell, I don't know if he was pictured in the club in the end, but people were saying he was, and that can disrupt the dressing room, etc. I didn't know that about Alan St. Maximin when you said that. To be fair to St. Maximin, I think he carries himself really well off the pitch. I mean, that was that lovely story the other day when he gave a watch to a fan. I think he's excellent on social media. He really connects the fans to the players, where you can't really get that these days anymore. So I think St. Maximin's attitude is brilliant off the pitch in terms of engaging with fans. But yeah, of course, attitude off the pitch can impact the dressing room and performances on it. But I don't know. I'm not too concerned about Newcastle's attitudes off the pitch at the minute. They just need to work on the football, get it right. It is close. I really do think Eddie Howe will inspire a bit of a run of form eventually once he's got his new playing style on the players. But yeah, I think that's more important than, say, the way the players are carrying themselves at the minute, which I think is okay.
Yeah. And Andy, would you agree with what Ethan's just said there?
Completely. I think there's a lot going on behind the scenes, which is obviously helping with the players. And I mean, especially the communication push that's going on with fans right now. In the NUFC TV interviews that we see on Twitter and stuff, they're starting to ask harder hitting questions. There was one with Shelby where they were like, "Oh, some fans maybe thought you'd drop out of favour," and he goes, "Really? Why is that?" Like, sort of thing, and he's like quite taken aback by it. And I don't know if the previous regime have kind of protected the players from whatever, but no, I'm really enjoying the communication. But one thing I have to say, because I'm happy, although the result wasn't great, I'm so happy I bought that ticket to go to the match, because my God, St James's was electric. I haven't been in St James's, I don't think, since that night we beat Annecy in the Europa League final when it was bouncing then. But wow, it was just like everyone was singing, like the family area, even up in level 7 in the Milburn was giving it, and it was just that Eddie Howe's Black White Army was just, it's the loudest I've ever heard the ground. And I mean, we live in Gosforth, so a couple of miles away from the ground. But my lass was saying she could hear the ground with the windows shut and everything. It was that loud. It was amazing. It was like those kinds of things stick with you, and it makes you really proud to support this football club.
Well, I know Henry Winter said it was the best atmosphere he's witnessed this season, and obviously he's been around all the different football grounds in the Premier League this year, and he said it was the best atmosphere.
Mate, absolutely electric. It was unbelievable. Like, everyone was just giving it all for the team, and I don't know if it had been the same if if we hadn't gone down to 10 men. But we were very much, well, you'd usually be the 12th man, wouldn't you? But we were very much the 11th man, and it was just memorising, really. It was fantastic.
I completely get what you mean. You hear the crowds from so far. There's the video of when Kennedy scored against Southampton. It's a video of the guy on the car park. You just hear the build up and the celebration. Even I live in like Montague. It's near Kenton. Like back home, whenever I'm there, and I always remember the Chelsea game that we played. It was the last game of the season where we won 3-0.
Yeah,
hearing the screams and the chants when the goals went in there. So it's just, we can't get the atmosphere, and obviously Tuesday proved it, but we just don't really get to experience it that often now because of everything that's been happening. But hopefully better times are ahead.
Good times are coming, mate. Good times are coming. I'm a strong believer of that.
I do really hope so. Let's hope we stay up first, though.
I think, honestly, mate, I think if we put more performances in, like we did against Norwich, we showed we could defend. I thought, obviously, we had to with missing a man. I thought that really gave us confidence going ahead in the season. And look, I know it hasn't been done before, but these kind of things were meant to be changed. So I'm a strong believer in that Newcastle United, under the eyes of Eddie Howe, can't do it.
Let's leave it on that statement, eh? Thanks so much for Ethan coming on for his first podcast in particular. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thanks for Andy coming on as per, being absolutely class. And thanks to everyone who tuned into the podcast as well. It's always good having you on and listening and tuning in. We'll be back next time, of course, to talk about the fallout for the Burnley game. And as I say every single time, let us pray and hope we are talking about a win. But yeah, thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in. Thanks again to you two for coming on. We'll catch you later. Bye-bye.